Well, hello, this is Tony Guthrie, and I'm sitting here in my home on a Saturday morning going through this YouTube channel, which I've had up for probably a decade. But only in recent months have I really started to really engage with it again. Life goes by and things come up, and it's and it's just kind of tough to stay on top of these things. But at this stage of my life, moving pre-retirement years, I'm going to focus a lot more on it and just pour tons and tons of content into it and value into it to help you improve your preaching or grow as a preacher, especially in the area of expository preaching. And in this video, what I did was I found this video right here that I made 8 years ago. And as you can see, it has had 10,000 views on it and a few comments. But when a video gets that many views, that means it's something people are interested in. So somewhere along the line, 10,000 preachers watched that, and I'm glad that they did. But because it's 8 years old, it's not been viewed very much in recent years. So I'm reposting it on this video here with a few edits just to get that information back out there, since so many of you have shown that that's one of the things you're interested in, is learning how to, make the most effective and meaningful outlines you can make in your preaching. So one of the things I'm going to do is make even more videos on sermon outlines, give you some examples, and there'll be a total playlist for that as I begin to do that. So check back in the next couple of weeks and see if that's already started. And by the time you're watching this, it may already be up as a playlist. So take a look at that. So without further ado, let's get into this reposting of this, and let's see if it's helpful to you. And by the way, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Give me some comments below. That would be appreciated. And also in the description, take a look there. I've got some things for you there, some freebies and some opportunities. Thank you again for watching, and be well. This is Tony Guthrie. It's good to be with you, and I thank you for stopping by to spend a minute or two with me on this video about outlining. One of the things that I find that a lot of preachers do when they are trying to put together an expository outline is they put together what I call a preacher's outline. And I talk about this to some large degree in my classes, of course, and I talk about it in the book. So if you haven't gotten a copy of the book, I encourage you to go on this page where it says buy the book and pick up a copy. But I'm going to show you what I mean by that and why it's a big no-no and so forth. This is an actual outline I received recently from one of my coaching clients. Again, I have a coaching ministry to where I work one-on-one with people who are interested in improving their expository preaching and their delivery and so forth. And this gives me an example of, or gives me an opportunity to give you an example of exactly what I do. Now, this is an example that came from one of my students. This outline right here, this what I call this preacher's outline, right there, and this is very common among preachers and pastors. They think that something like that can work. They're working in their study and they throw something together like that, and they're all excited about the fact that it's alliterated, which they make a big deal out of that, and alliteration is important, but it's not that big of a deal when your goal is to connect with the audience. But I want you to notice what's problematic about this particular preacher's outline, because as I note here, this is just a typical preacher's outline, and it's a big no-no. It's basic, it's boring, and it sounds like a list of commands, and I want you to avoid these if you really want to connect with the modern listener. I want to show you what I think feels just a little bit better. And you can come up here and you can see an outline that I gave back to this student based upon the same text. Now, I'm not giving you the passage here because it's not essential to what we're talking about. But I want you to notice a couple of things. The difference between this outline and this outline up here. This one is very basic and boring. This one actually speaks, I think you would agree with this, directly to the heart of a listener. It's not demanding. It's not commanding. It's not anything other than a reality, a statement of reality. And the phraseology here, and these I drew from the very same passage that he drew them from. Here you see I use these words rather than we. I use the word, we must. I talk about sincere Christianity. And it gives me the opportunity in the introduction. If I'm going to talk about, what a sincere Christian does, then what I can do is I can start in my introduction right after I've read the text. I can step out from behind the podium and I can say, does it bother you as much as it bothers me when you meet an insincere person? And I can sort of talk about that for a few minutes. And then I can say, isn't it almost just as aggravating or bothersome that we might actually meet an insincere Christian? and then you can kind of joke and say, now I know none of you here are insincere. I mean, we're talking about other people, of course, but just for the sake of this message today, raise your hand if you consider yourself a sincere Christian. And of course, every hand in the place goes up, and now you've got them. Now you can talk to them about these aspects that need to be talked about. And what I say here, instead of what he says up here, we must have a proper attitude. My first point is a sincere Christian or sincere Christians desire to reflect the self-sacrificial humility that Jesus reflected. And that's way better. And that way I can talk to them and say, you've already admitted that you are sincere. But the question then becomes, do you have that desire to reflect the self-sacrificial nature of the humility that Jesus reflected? Are you like Jesus in the sense that you are interested in denying yourself? And this is and I can talk about this notion of how hard it is for us to actually deny ourselves as the Lord required. So I can use this idea. It's softer, but it's also stronger without being a command or without being demanding. And I also love to use these kind of words right here. I love to use these kind of words like self-sacrificial or self-lowering. The reason I like them is because I consider them power words. They cause people to think a little bit further than in saying, sincere Christians desire to reflect the humility of Jesus. Well, I can actually explain the emphasis of the text. If the text is talking about the humility of Jesus, then the text is talking about a certain kind of humility of Jesus. Not all humility is the same. And in this particular passage, we're talking about a self-sacrificial type of humility that Jesus reflected. So, and it wouldn't be very hard for you to figure out which passage we're talking about here if you know your Bible, but that's really not an important point. I'm talking about the way that we outline these things. So sincere Christians desire to reflect the self-sacrificial humility that Jesus reflected. Sincere Christians will go on to desire to reflect the self-lowering attribute that Jesus reflected, and so forth. And now down here, I'm having trouble. This is just what I showed him in the coaching session. I did this just literally in about 5 minutes over the coaching session with him. So I wouldn't be totally satisfied with this here. I would go back to the study and ponder it a little bit further. But the reason I'm showing you this is because for so many of us, we're happy with this. This preacher's outline. I don't know why any preacher would ever be happy with that kind of an outline, and why any listener would ever be satisfied listening to it. When you can sit back and come up with something like this, and the way that you come up with something like this, my friend, is to simply push yourself a little further. These words that are in here, sincere Christianity, self-sacrificial, these are indeed reflected in the exposition of the text. These words here, anybody can see. And any average Christian reading their Bible could probably draw this conclusion, but your goal is to show them what they can't see for themselves. And this requires you taking your exegesis and your exposition and pushing it to draw out what's really there and the real emphasis of the text. And in this case, sincere Christians desire to reflect the self-sacrificial humility and so forth. This is the work of exposition. This is the work of expository preaching, but it is the difference between a good preacher and a great preacher. I hope this has been encouraging to you. If